Hey, Shalom, I want to start off source by giving no praise to Yahweh, Shem Yahushua, Shem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles of GMS and honors to you brothers doing the work in truth, war, sincerity. This is a quick one on back on this Sabrina series, right? I think I've got probably two more things I wanted to touch on it when the if the spirit wills. I think, yeah, we'll see what happens. But one of the things that spoiler alert, one of the things that is evident from the last couple of episodes, is very much the fact that you can't have a child that's self-willed. You can't have a child that keeps doing whatever the fuck they want to do, thinking that they that they're special in some sort of way, right? And there's an exchange that occurs where basically Sabrina goes to her cousin and says, says that she's basically going to try cheat to death, right? She's going to do a resurrection spell, right? And then doing this spell, basically a blood sacrifice is required, right? But Sabrina, she was like, well, it says that someone has to be killed. There's nothing about, it says nothing about not bringing that person that was sacrificed back to life, which is what she then goes and does, right? And then, which basically, you hear that, and one of the things you think of is these guys that come into the truth, right? And then they start doing their own thing, right? They're deceived by their own vain opinion, right? And then the cousin basically makes a statement. Says, why do you think that the world always, why do you think the world always basically caters to what you want? Why do you think there's always an exception for you, right? What did I say? I wanted to speaking on lean. Right, it says Proverbs 3 and 5. It says, trust in Yahweh with all thine heart and lean not unto thine own understanding. Right, so you get these guys, they come in, right, they lean on their own understanding and they do whatever the fuck it is that they want to do. They start twisting the scriptures to fit their agenda, right? But as the scripture says, this is Hebrews 5 and 12. It says, for when the time you ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of the Most High, and not become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat, right? So, hey, when you're wanting to be teacher, you have to humble yourself like a child, right? And then start with the basics, which is the milk, right? You won't give a baby a steak; that baby will die. Right, you have to give it the food that is, ready for him. When you do start giving it meat, you give it, bite-sized chunks of meat at that, and you cut very, very small so that they can chew it and deal with it, right? You don't give a 1 month old baby a full grown sirloin steak, right? You don't give them no Wagyu beef sirloin, right? And they start understanding of you need to be taught again. You don't know shit, right? And that's what a lot of these guys that come into this truth think, right? And like I said, the last couple of episodes in this series, it's only 10 episodes, 50 minutes each roughly, right? You really see this coming into play where this bitch is basically just doing what she wants, and in doing so is causing more trouble, bringing shame on the family, right? And in basic, in fact, throughout the whole series, that's what she's doing, because she's doing what she wants to do, right? Bringing shame on the family, right? We obviously, that's in that side of things, right? But we also have provisions in the scriptures for a child that behaved that way, right? And we'll start with Sirach 30 and 8. It says, a horse not broken becometh headstrong, right? And I'll look up that word. Headstrong basically means willful, right? Let me just... It says a self-willed and obstinate, right? Synonyms are willful, strong-willed, stubborn, right? It says, and a child left himself will be willful. It says, cocker thy child, and he shall make thee afraid, right? Play with him, and he will bring thee to heaviness. Laugh not with him, lest thou have sorrow with him, and lest thou gnash thy teeth in the end. Give him no liberty in his youth, and wink not at his follies, right? You gotta basically, when you see a child doing some wickedness, you gotta snap on that shit, man, right? And you come into this truth, right? And let's say you're aiming to be a you're dealing with brothers or whatever, right? You see brother doing something that's off, you be like, oh, you doing, bro? you know it says give him no liberty in his youth, and wink not at his follies. Basically, don't, if you see your child doing some foolishness, right, don't just be like, whatever. You got to stop that, because then what happens? Then you end up in the situation that we find ourselves in, this society where, for a lot of Jacob gangbangers into this and into that. And if they ain't gangbangers, what they took Esau's folly of homosexuality and transgenderism, and they've eaten it whole and are running with it, right? The right thing to do, your child comes up, says, Daddy, I want to be XYZ, is you smack him upside the head, right? But what happens if you do that in this kingdom? Your child gets taken away from you, man. Right? It says, bow down his neck while he is young, and beat him on the sides while he is a child. Right? I was saying, Esau's trying to stop you from beating your child. Right? It says, lest he wax stubborn. And that's the majority of these children today, man. They're stubborn as all hell, right? They're stubborn as all hell, right? It says, and be disobedient unto thee, right? Yeah, you tell them to do something, they don't want to do it, right? It says, and so bring sorrow to thine heart. It says, chastise thy son and hold him to labor. Get him doing some what? What does Esau do, right? Right, let me just confirm what this word labor here means in this it says Sirach. There's no Strong's Concordance, right? But just on the word, right, hold him to labor, right? Basically, labor is work, put him to work, right? It says, lest his lewd behavior be an offense unto thee, right? So then, yeah, he goes around just doing stuff and making you look like a fool, right? It says, we read that. This is Deuteronomy 21:18. It says, if a man have a stubborn and rebellious son or daughter, right? It says, which will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and that when they have chastened him, will not hearken unto them, then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him, and bring him out unto the elders of his city, and unto the gate of his place. And they shall say unto the elders of the city, this our son is stubborn and rebellious, he will not obey our voice, he is a glutton and a drunkard. And all the men of his city shall stone him with stones, that he die. So shall thou put evil away from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear. Right? So now, yeah, you get people that get offended at the whole rape doctrine, whatever, what have you, which no one ever said go out and rape anyone, right? But, for instance, this is literally the chapter before, right? This is basically saying you got a rebellious son, which a lot of these little hard-headed niggas are rebellious, right? Their daughters are rebellious, going around to university sucking and fucking, right? High school sucking and fucking, being a whore, right? And bringing shame on the family name, right? Scriptures talk about having a good name, right? And these children these days are they go completely against it. Scripture says in the ancient world, right, that son would have been, what do you call it? They would have been put to death, right? And everyone would have heard about it. And what would have happened, right? Other stubborn ass children, they would have heard and like, look, man, I don't want that to happen to me, right? And the stoning, that's a sight, man, right? That's a sight. You might have seen videos, on I don't know, Live Leak or whatever, maybe in say Uganda where they're stoning a homo, or the islands when they're doing the same thing or whatever, what have you, right? And that shit doesn't look pleasant, man. And each time you hear that, you hear the drop of the stone on the man's body, that's an unpleasant sight. Now imagine, you're all, being an asshole, right? And you hear about it, or maybe you went and you saw it. Your parents might have said, look, man, this is what gonna happen to you if you don't fix up. And motherfucker will fix up, right? But what does this society do? once again, I say they teach you beating your kids is child abuse. And in fact, I had an argument with a Becky at the job. Right, she was all like, "Oh, there's other ways. You could, send them to the room, blah 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 blah." And then in the same sentence, right, we also were you beaten as a child? And she was like, "No," and that's why I was a terror. Basically saying that's why I was a terror unto my mom, right? And then we're just there like, well, that's the point. That's exactly what we're saying. Had you had gotten beats, right, you would have been respectful to your mother, right? So also don't forget, Scripture says, "Honor thy mother and thy father." Right? This is Proverbs 29:15 says, "The rod and reproof give wisdom," right? "But a child left to himself bringeth his mother shame," right? Proverbs 22:15, "Foolishness is bound in the heart of a child." Hey, but foolishness is, right? That's why, hey, you remember when you was a child, amount of shit I wanted to be when I was a child. I wanted to be an F1 driver. I'm sure I'm too tall for that shit. I wanted to be a pilot. I'm colorblind, so I can't do any of that shit, right? I wanted to be a footballer. I wanted to be the next Timberland. I wanted to do this. I wanted to do that, right? Right, I just, and then you see other children, because I come from a background, different background, and growing up in Africa, first couple years of my life, right, where you don't really have much, but you see the children here, right, they'll be like, "Oh, I want to be a dinosaur, or I want to be a fire truck, I want to be this," right? It's foolishness, right? Because your child isn't gonna be a dinosaur. Just like how you have a man child, right? He might come and say, "I want to be a woman or whatever," and you gotta back that child up because it's his child. He's foolish. He takes in and runs with what it is that you've told him, right? And if you ain't correcting your child, you end up with the situation that we have today, right? It says, "But the rod of correction shall drive it far from him." That's right. That's right. Right. So your child is foolish, right? But then you whack him, right? Then he gonna start behaving himself, man. Right? He'll be like, "No, no, no, I can't. I can't do that, man. That ain't right." Right? It says Proverbs 23:13, "Withhold not correction from the child, for if thou beatest him of the rod, he shall not die." And that's it, right? And that's what, like I gave the example of when that Becky was trying to speak about, "Oh, you shouldn't hit children," whatever, what have you, right? Her approach will lead your child to death, right? Look at London, for instance, which I know a lot, in comparison to, say, some of the cities and states in the US, nothing's really happening, but you've got all of these young, quote, drillers, right? Always talking about chef man, i.e. stab man, or whatever, what have you, right? Killing and all of that shit. Right, that's what happens when you don't beat your child. And the thing is, and that's what we're saying, there's a process to beat your child. Right, because a lot of these, for instance, these single mothers, the way they beat their children, they just beat them for beating them. They don't tell them why they're beating them, right? They don't say, "Look, son, this is why I beat you. I beat you because I told you to do X. You didn't do that, whatever, what have you," right? And that's what I'm trying to explain to the bitch. I was like, "Look, man, no, at the end of the day, that's your seed. You don't want to see your seed all crippled and all black eyed, just not with your woman. You don't want to see a woman with a black eye. But if either of them do something that ain't right, you've got to correct them, right? And then in that correction, you got to say, "Look, this is why that happened," right? Give the example again, once again, of homosexuality and transgenderism. Your child comes home and says, "I want to do X, I want to do Y." Right? You'd be like, "Nah." You beat it out of them, right? And then they're gonna be like, "Nah, I can't pursue those." You basically beat. You tell them to curse them demons out, basically, right? And then that child won't grow up to be a homosexual, right? And if he doesn't grow up to be a homosexual, guess what? You've saved his life, right? It's Proverbs 22:6. It's train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it, right? And that's why you beat him as a child, right? That's why you beat him as a child, so that they know their boundaries. You know that there's certain things that they cannot do, which is why Esau's created this system where mum is out at work, right, along with dad, right, or if dad's not there, it's just mum and there is no father figure, right? And then all of these children are forced to go to school, right, where they're taught all of this madness, right? Transgenderism, homosexuality, right? They're taught all of these from a young age. You know, hey, and it's proof that Esau's the devil, because you get a child, right? Esau says a child cannot. I'll use here in the UK as an example. A child is not mentally capable of having making the decision to have sex until they're 16, right? But they're apparently mentally capable of choosing whether they want to keep their rod or not before that, right? Which is madness, right? But yeah, that's all I had. And like I said, you know, in anything you watch, anything you do, there are gems that you can take from it. Like I said, there were lots of little gems, a lot of bigger gems in that series, Sabrina, man. But yeah, there was a lot of witchcraft in that, as in, you know, on your mind, like, you know, straight up witchcraft on your mind, which is why, you know, not everything is you know, expedient to watch. But yeah, no, it was a good series. Like I said, I may have another one or two that I want to touch on it, but this is this lesson. So Lord's will, that was edifying. Until the next time, I say shalom.